Yes. Hi, Mia. Lucian. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Hello, Andrea. Come on in, have a seat. Good. So what you have on your desk, thank you, Pamela. What you have on your desk in front of you is the packet that we've been working on all week. What I did was there's an area that I have highlighted here. This was the part that we didn't get to yesterday. We ran out of time. So what we're going to do today for kind of our bell ringer, but it really I want to give you some time to work on it. I want you to spend the next 8 minutes, and I really want it to be a timed 8 minutes. I want you to write a reflection based on what we have learned this week about the transatlantic slave trade. And more specifically, I do want you to use these words in the writing that you do. Okay, that's where I want you to put your reflection. So I want you to spend a good solid 8 minutes working on your own, thinking about everything that we have learned. We have a lot of information in the packet, so if you need to go back and refer to what we've already done, look at your notes. So I'm going to give you 8 minutes. Are there any questions? No? Okay. So get writing. I'm going to set a timer. Raise your hands if you are done, just for a quick check. All right, cool, thanks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I want you to stop the writing now, and what we'll do at the end of class today, what you'll notice is that you have these packets, and if you actually flip through them, you'll notice that I did a little highlighting on yours. Some of you have some check marks at the top, that means the entire thing was done. Some of you, I may have circled the lesson number because maybe you were not here, and some of you didn't finish some of the questions. And that might include the reflection that we just wrote. And we're going to have time at the end of class today to make sure that everybody's packet is completely done. So even if you missed a day, we're hopefully going to spend the last 20 minutes of class just making sure that these packets are complete and finished, because we're going to use them when we start our research next week. Okay? So what I would actually like to do right now is just set those papers aside for a minute. And what we're going to do is switch gears and talk about how we're going to use this information next week and what the goal is. And we're going to introduce some new words today, which you guys will write down and define. So, as you know, we have been ramping up towards our first big research project. And with this project, you'll be in a couple of big groups. There are going to be 4 groups, and there are going to be about 5 of you in each group. So you're going to have a lot of people to rely on and a lot of people to really brainstorm with and think critically with. And we're going to use these packets as we go through our studies. You're going to use this as a reference for yourself. We've put down definitions in here. We have used a lot of statistics in here, correct information. And each group is going to get a packet of what we call sources. They are going to be primary and secondary sources. So just like when you were in Ms. Horsberg's class working on your country projects, when you did your recycling projects, you are going to be doing some research about a specific topic within the transatlantic slave trade. So we need to talk today about primary sources and secondary sources. Raise your hand if you've ever heard these words before. Have you ever seen them on anything? Oh, everybody should have their hands raised because they have been typed out on your documents that you have in front of you for the whole week. I've used primary and secondary sources when we have talked all week to get your brains thinking about these words a little bit. We looked at primary sources yesterday specifically. We looked at a lot of photos and things, a lot of sketches, and we heard that primary source the other day of the recollection of the slaves' time during the Middle Passage. So we kind of already know a little bit about primary and secondary sources, but we do need to go ahead and define them. And then it goes through a list of what examples of primary sources are. And we've actually seen a lot of these over the past several days. I also put some examples up of what some primary sources could look like. Some of which we've looked at. We've looked at artifacts throughout the year. We looked at artifacts of early humans. We've looked at artifacts of early civilizations. You can find it in a library. A lot of primary sources are artifacts that we looked at. Okay? We know that a lot of people left behind a lot of artifacts. It could be letters that people have written. It could be laws that were written by the government. Anything that comes from the time period that you are studying is a primary source. Anything that is written or spoken by people during that time period, that's a primary source. We talked a lot about Martin Luther King Jr. this year. Speeches that he has given, if you're studying Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, any speech that he's given, that's a primary source. It's coming directly from him. So it has a lot of value. All right? Encyclopedias, any information that we get out of those are secondary sources. A lot of stuff you find on the internet, secondary sources. Documentaries, secondary sources. So go ahead and jot down those in those blanks, please. So as you see on the paper, when we're doing the definitions for primary and secondary sources, they're pretty long because they are not only a definition, but they're also giving us examples of what primary and secondary sources are. Okay, we use sources in our research so that we can find the most accurate information, but they're very, very different, these two things. All right, so what I would like for you to do, and Jeremiah, you're going to be with these two, Ari and Serenity, you're going to chat. I want you to talk with your table partner, and both of you please go. Talk about which source type you think is the most accurate, the best information, and try to explain to them why. Go.
Okay. More reliable, truthful in the event of history because the event occurred or experienced the event. It also includes speeches and photographs of what happened.
I agree because both like I don't know how to explain it, but like the textbook, it gives like detail and then like we add more to it.
And you said just primary source. Raise your hand if you said just secondary sources are the most reliable. And I did have a couple of people who said both. So raise your hand if you said both. Okay. All right, can somebody who said primary sources tell us why they said primary sources are the most reliable? Serenity, what did you say?
I think the first type is primary because it says that to get photographs, speeches, and talk about the event occurred, and also speeches and the time period.
Okay, so how is that valuable to us? Like, why is it important that we have these speeches ready for us, and how is that something that's reliable and accurate?
So we can get information.
Okay, directly from the person it came from, right? Okay, so it's pretty reliable. Tell us why you said secondary sources are the most reliable.
I believe secondary sources are a more reliable source because documents are documenters.
Okay. And Han, what did you say about why we think both? You were torn between both. What did you say?
I think they both have a good studying method because real documents would be best for studying what time period it's in, but the textbook will tell about the facts.
Okay, so we get a little bit of what they were experiencing, and then the textbook looks at all of the information, puts it together for us, gives us facts. Very good. All right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to set this paper aside. We want to continue thinking about primary, secondary sources next week, but I did promise you that we will have some time at the end of class to actually start working and completing our packets. So we're going to put the primary, secondary sources on pause for a moment. So this is talking about how they maintain culture. So thinking
grandfather experience.
Oh yeah, I don't.
Hold on, I'll go get you a Sheridan.
Not look at the camera.
Oh, he's got. Yeah.